Hey, what's up, guys? It's Bakes here, and thank you for joining me for today's episode of my random horror reviews. Today's movie is one that I think is kind of fun. Like this movie or not, you can't deny it's one of the more notable slashes from the 80s. Starring the Scream Queen herself, Jamie Lee Curtis. Today's movie is 1980's Prom Night. Here in this Prom Night double feature that I have with the first movie and then the unrelated sequel, which I've actually done reviews for Prom Night 2 and 3 on my channel so far, so it's pretty cool to come back to the OG, because it's also been a little while since I last checked it out. Like I was saying before, it's a pretty notable slasher, so I feel like most people in the horror community have at least seen Prom Night once, so I actually won't dwell on the intro too long for this one, but as usual, I'll quickly go through the plot before I get into my thoughts for this movie. Prom Night actually opens with a flashback. This group of kids playing in this abandoned building. They're playing essentially tag, hide and seek sort of thing, and this young girl named Robin wants to join in with them. And she ends up getting backed up by these kids out of this double-story window where she falls to her death. This group of kids, four of them, they decide to cover it up, keep it a secret. They're not going to tell anybody. And now 10 years later, someone has come back for revenge on these kids. Obviously takes place on prom night and is picking them off one by one. Now that I think about it, it's actually pretty unique because you would kind of expect our main character in this movie, being Jamie Lee, to be one of the kids that kept it a secret. But no, she's actually the sister of Robin, who fell to her death, and the rest of the kids are just Jamie Lee's friends. So it's sort of a bit weird like that. You would kind of expect, the main character that you're following to be a main victim. But no, that's actually not the situation in here, which I've just sort of popped into my mind now. But either way, let's get into my thoughts of 1980's Prom Night. So in my introduction, I briefly sort of brushed over saying love or hate this movie. You can't deny it's one of the more impactful slashes from the 80s. And what I meant by that was this is a movie for a long time you would hear people kind of refer to it as being one of the most overrated popular slashes. And for a while I used to agree. I probably wouldn't say that it was the most overrated slasher, but it definitely was up there for a while. And I wouldn't even be surprised if there's evidence somewhere on my channel of me saying exactly that in a video. But it's almost became such a popular pick for people's most overrated popular slasher that it's almost become a null opinion at this point. But for that reason, I hadn't checked out the original Prom Night, I'd probably say in a couple of years. I've always said that I prefer the sequel storyline. Like I said in my introduction, the sequels are totally unrelated from the first movie. In the sequels, it's kind of where the franchise turned into more of a supernatural slasher franchise, with Mary Lou being the main villain. And, as I said, the films are totally unrelated, and the first movie's just pretty much a straight up slasher. And I still really like the sequel storylines overall. I probably like them more. But upon rewatch, man, I had a great time with the OG Prom Night, and it's a bit of a weird one because it's not like this time watching the movie I saw it in a different light or were picking up different vibes or anything like that. I just simply seemed to enjoy the movie more for what I already knew it was. Nothing caught me off guard by like, oh, I don't remember this happening or this happening. It was pretty much everything that I remembered, but I just enjoyed the experience more. So it was a bit of a weird one, but we'll get into that now. So one of the main reasons that you'll hear people say that Prom Night is overrated and they don't enjoy it is that for a huge portion of this movie there are no kills, and that's actually very true. Like a big chunk of this movie, nobody dies. But the time between is just so entertaining, and I'd say the main thing that keeps it entertaining for me is the characters, though also having the events take place over one day I think also helps. I'm not exactly sure why, but that's kind of the vibe I get, just having it take place over one day instead of like over a week or whatever, I think just helps it flow through. But I do want to start with the characters because I really do enjoy the cast of characters that we get in this movie. Like how many slashes of this time can you say that you could pretty much line up the entire cast and list them name by name of characters? Like in this movie, you have Jamie Lee's Kim, you have her brother Alex, and then there's Nick, Wendy, Kelly, Jude, and then Jude gets swooped on by Slick, and then you got the meathead Lou. Like the cast of characters is just so fucking good. And again, name a cast from a horror movie where you can name every character by name of this time, and almost don't want them killed either. Just off the top of my head, I can go with like the first Elm Street movie, maybe even Nightmare on Elm Street 3 as well. That is a very good cast of characters there. You almost don't want any of them to die. My Bloody Valentine is another one as well. But yeah, in this movie, just all the characters are fun. They're all so enjoyable. And as I said, you can just name them off and off and off, and I think that's a really cool thing to have. So moving on, I do want to get into the cast in this movie, which kind of goes hand in hand with what I was saying before with our characters, because for our characters to be so entertaining and fun, our cast has got to do a really good job, and I feel like they do. Like, I always knew that Jamie Lee Curtis was a great actress, and seeing her in this movie wasn't like a waking light and me realizing finally how great she is. Like, she's obviously been great. Most people would know her for the Halloween franchise, or, even just going back to the OG and seeing her in probably the most recent thing that I've seen her in was probably season 2 of The Bear. I love The Bear. If you haven't seen that show, it's awesome, but she was great in the episodes that she was in. And she's just great again in this as well. Just the subtle things that she does as a young actor that even the young actors in this movie don't do around her, I think just sort of sets her apart. And obviously she's gone on to have a great career since Prom Night as well. But yeah, she's just great in this as well. Leslie Nielsen, obviously you would have seen that on the banner there. He's in this movie in a serious role. Like, no humour on his part at all, which is crazy because Leslie Nielsen is just so well known for doing comedy, and he plays Jamie Lee Curtis's character's dad, and he's also the principal, just a very serious role. But moving on to the rest of the cast, because they all just do such a good job filling in with the stereotypes of their characters in their performances. Like I said, you have the douchey meathead in Lou, you have the bitchy ex-girlfriend in Wendy, you have the nerd who thinks he's a ladies' man, which he kind of is, because Slick, as I said, pulls Jude, and I think Jude is a babe. She's stunning in this movie. I think all the girls in this movie are stunning, actually, now that I'm on that topic, but I just feel like all the cast do such a good job in this movie, and I did want to highlight that as well. So like I said earlier, I can't deny the fact that there is a huge portion of this movie where there are no kills, but the vibes and the characters just carry the entertainment factor for me. The 80s feel helps as well, driving around town, stopping at the drive-in to get some food, people prepping for prom, hijinks at the school, beautiful girls flashing their asses at the groundskeeper. It's all good fun. I fucking love it all. But speaking of good fun, the best dance sequence in a horror movie is in this movie. And I know that sounds very niche, but trust me, there are actually surprisingly a lot more dance sequences in horror movies than what you would expect. But I know it probably sounds like I'm taking the piss a little bit, but genuinely, I've always loved the fucking dance sequence in this movie. For those who don't know, it goes on way longer than what it needs to. But Jamie Lee's got some fucking moves. The whole dance sequence is just fucking fun in this movie. Like, what a time to be alive. Like, back in the 80s, which obviously I wasn't alive, by the way, but just from the vibes of this movie, like, you can dance to disco and still be the most popular person in school and win prom king and queen. Like, to me, it's just so fucking entertaining. It looks like so much fun. And that's what you get from this movie while kills aren't happening. You're just entertained in the time between. At least I was. So far in this review, I've done a lot of rambling about all the fun and enjoyment I've had with this movie upon rewatch and everything, but it still isn't perfect, and probably my biggest issue with the movie this time around is in the first 15 minutes of the film, they introduce all the suspects which could be the killer. And thinking back on it, in the first 15 minutes, they go crazy with the red herrings and clues, and they drop all these little seeds hinting who it could be. And as I said, it's all in the first 15 minutes. It's fucking insane. But the main suspect that they really push in this movie is this one man who the death of Robin was pinned on back in the day. And the whole time he's been locked up in jail or the loony bin, I can't really remember, but it's not important. The whole time he's been locked up, and now on prom night, however many years later, he's escaped. And you kind of can't fully rule him out from being the killer either, because you could, say that maybe he's seeking revenge on the kids because obviously he was innocent. The kids did it back in the day. Somehow he figured out that they did it, and now he's trying to get revenge on them after all this time. Like I said, it's a bit of a stretch, but I don't know. You can't fully rule it out. But like I said, at the start of the movie, we are told and shown who killed Robin. So by including this guy, it just feels too out of left field for him to actually be the killer. And the idea of him being the killer, like I said, is mostly a red herring, but it's really pushed, and it feels like such a waste of time because we spend too much time during the start and middle of this movie following a police investigation trying to find this guy, because as I said, now he's escaped. It's on prom night, and the police are trying to track him down, and this whole time I want to be hanging out, with the kids in the school and hanging around town getting ready for prom, because that was the engaging part, that was the fun part, but too much of this time is being eaten up with this investigation with the cops trying to find this guy, when to me I feel like it's an obvious red herring. And I am going to spoil it, it's not him. So it just feels like such a big waste of time, if you're getting what I'm saying. And on top of that, we also know that the killer has more of a personal connection to what's going on for this guy to be it. It was just too much of a red herring to me. And then on top of that, like I brought up in the introduction when I was talking about the plot, we know who the killer's victims are. We know who the killer is targeting. And Jamie Lee is our main character in this movie, so she never really feels in danger because she was never one of the intended victims. Yes, you can imagine that she might get caught in between and an accident might happen and whatever, but she never really feels too in danger, which also sort of feels like a little bit of a problem to me. So as you can probably gather from my review and what I've been saying through this episode, that I've had a pretty big change of heart from my initial thoughts of the movie Prom Night from previous watches and whatever, because I had a blast rewatching it for this review. I know for a 100% fact that I wasn't just mindlessly following the overrated hype back in the day when I was getting into horror and everything, because I even remember watching this movie when I was a kid and everything for the first time, being like, this is Prom Night, like this is one of the quintessential 80s slashes that I need to check out. And honestly, it probably was a big factor of what I was saying earlier. There is a big portion of this movie where no one is killed and everything, and I just didn't fully click into that. But as I said, it's also kind of weird because it's not like I don't remember this movie having good characters or having fun vibes. I guess it just took up to now for it to fully click with me and be like, you know what, this movie is still actually a lot of fun. This review's gone on long enough, so I'll quickly just sort of reiterate like what I've been saying earlier. I still really like the two following unrelated sequels. Probably more overall as like the overall story that they're telling. I'm not sure if the movies specifically individually are better than this one, but the overall story I probably enjoy more. Which, like I said before, I've done reviews of Prom Night 2 and 3 on my channel before. I actually haven't seen Prom Night 4, so I should get around to it. But I have done reviews of 2 and 3, but I don't remember what I rated them. So if my score is dramatically higher or lower, just fucking cut me some slack. I'm going to give Prom Night... I was thinking a 7.5, but fuck, I'm going to give it an 8, because I had so much fun with the movie this time around. Like, I low-key want to watch it again now, and I just watched it like a couple of nights ago. I just want to end this review and go back and watch it. I might, fuck it, but yeah, like I said with that rating, like if you go back and check out my review for Prom Night 2 or whatever and I gave it a 7 or something, don't be like, oh, I thought you said you liked that movie more and now you've rated the first one. Like, fuck off, leave me alone. Like, I always say, like, opinions, especially scores and rankings, aren't set in concrete, because opinions change, especially they fluctuate over time. Like, sometimes you really love a movie and then other times it's like, yeah, I know it's a great movie, just this time I didn't have the best experience, but I know I overall really like this movie. Yeah, that happens sometimes. I'm just rambling now, so let me know your thoughts of Prom Night in the comments below, guys. I know there still is a large group of people out there that find it to be overrated still, and that's fine. Like I said, I got it because back in the day I was the same, but I had a blast. I swear I'm gonna probably just watch it again now after I'm done with this review, but yeah, I did have a little rant there about scoring towards the end there, but that's how it is sometimes. Like, I've had people be like, oh, you said you liked this movie more, but you only rated it like 0.5 higher and everything. It's like, fuck off, just leave me alone. Like, cut me some slack. My opinions change all the time. Sometimes, like, I remember, I forget what movie it was, but like I really wanted to give it like a 9 or something because every time before that I've really enjoyed it, but rewatching it for my review, it just didn't click with me on that sitting, so it sort of hurt to go a little bit lower. But I don't know, that's sort of just how I do my ratings. I'm rambling again, but thank you for joining me for this review, guys, and I'll see you for another video soon. Peace.